This is NDTV, and you're watching Classics.
Hello and welcome to the Unstoppable Indians. Every week we take a journey into the life of an outstanding Indian, a person whose talent, acumen or moral example is transforming India. The best, the finest from every field join me, Manvi Dhillon, on this show to share their life story, their journey to success. The knocks along the way, what made them get up and keep going, what makes them an unstoppable Indian. My guest today is a man who's been called the guru of Indian advertising. He's also been called the most influential man in Indian advertising. Some of his work has been voted commercial of the century, campaign of the century. He was the first Asian ever to serve as the president of a jury at Cannes. He's the only Indian to have won a double gold at Cannes and a triple grand prize at the London International Awards. Yes, I am talking about Piyush Pandey, Executive Chairman and National Creative Director of Ogilvy India. Piyush, thanks very much for joining us on the Unstoppable Indians.
Thanks, Manvi. It's lovely to be here.
You know, I'm going to pick my favorite campaign or commercial, and you tell me which one works for you. Fevikwik for me. What's yours?
I guess so.
Fevikwik as well?
Very difficult to decide about things which you have done at different points of time. You want to look at the latest work and forget what did wonderfully earlier. But yes, Fevikwik does it for me too.
You know, we're here in Jaipur, and I want to start at the very beginning. This is the city that you grew up in. I'm going to talk about your love before advertising, and that love was cricket. You really had cricket in your mind and cricket in your blood. You even played Ranji Trophy. What made you abandon cricket?
I haven't abandoned cricket. Yesterday we were assigned to do the work for the Indian Premier League. So I'm right in there, in a different role though. But you can't take cricket out of my blood, no.
Do you ever think that maybe you could have actually played cricket at a pro level?
You reach your level of incompetence. And I realized when I played Ranji Trophy that I was good enough to get into Ranji Trophy, but not really good enough to hang in there for a long time. So it was time to cut my losses and do something else.
I was just going to say that. Then obviously you're a man who's good at recognizing when to cut your losses. 1982, when you joined O&M, but before that there was a brief tea tasting stint as well. I won't get into that in too much detail. But 1982, you joined almost, as we say, right at the, you know, the...
Down there.
Down there.
Below the surface.
Trainee account executive. You know, I'm sure there was a lot of drudge work. When did advertising become fun for you? When did it become challenging?
I think within a month's time, because I do remember just after a month of joining, I was offered a fairly fancy job with a car and things like this and posting in Jaipur by Wazir Sultan Tobacco Company. But in a month's time, I had started enjoying this game of advertising and the people in advertising. So I turned it down, and thank God I did.
It's been remarkable, really, from, you know, that trainee executive level to executive chairman of the same company. Does that, when you look at this, does that feel intensely rewarding to you?
It has been very rewarding. What's more rewarding to me is when I do come up with ideas, or when ads see the light of day, when campaigns are successful in the marketplace, when things like, I was here for Ad Asia some years back, and the watchman at Rambagh Palace looked at me and said, you're stuck to Jaipur as if with Fevicol. And this was a 70-year-old man who couldn't read or write very much. But that gave me a greater sense of joy than a gold at Cannes.
I want to talk about advertising and the way you have seen it transform in the Indian context, because really you have seen that transformation, and many say you're responsible for that transformation. The mid-90s was when it all really began to change. You were part of that new thinking generation in advertising. Was it difficult to turn around and tell all your seniors, look, we need to break out of our old way of doing things?
Not to my seniors, but the industry took a little time. My seniors were very quick to realize that there was a potential in Indianizing our communication, and that is why they pulled me out of client servicing in 1987 and asked me to come onto the creative side and conceive campaigns which were thought of in the Indian language with the Indian people in mind. So they were encouraging, but the industry initially, there were lots of people who said, who are these bhaiyas from the north who are changing things around. But if I take it in totality, there was a lot of support because people loved the advertising that we were doing, and a whole lot of industry people also really cheered you on. I remember Mr. Subhash Ghoshal, even Alec Padamsi took around some of my commercials and talked in public about them. So I don't think there was a huge hurdle. Hurdles were only in people's minds. Once you did the work, people opened up.
But you know, the hurdles in the mind are the toughest to cross, and your whole line of work involves getting into our minds as consumers and, of course, convincing industry to think the way you're thinking. But what was the toughest period? When you look back, what was the toughest time? There must have been a toughest time. There is in each of our lives.
The toughest time, I don't really think I had a tough time. I was blessed. People initially thought that this was the domain of the English copywriter, and some people may have had early mental blocks. But I don't think I spent a day ever thinking about it. Am I in the right place? Are they stopping me from doing what I feel like doing? I think I received a lot of response to what I was trying to do.
You know, when you're sitting at this point today, life does look much easier than when you were actually living it. But I'm not going to dwell on the tough part too much. You know, there have been so many awards in your life. There's 600 plus. At one level, they're a reaffirmation of the quality of work that you're doing. But really, how does Piyush Pandey measure his past successes and his continuing performance?
I think as I shared with you earlier, I measure it when the neighbor comes in and says, hey, I saw that ad of yours. And the neighbor is not from advertising. And people come and call me up and they say, I saw that ad of yours, Heere ko kya pata tumhari umr kya hai, for SBI Life Insurance. And they said I felt as if it was a story from my life, as if it was my grandparents talking. When 17-year-olds at colleges cry when they see the commercial of 75-year-old people, that's my measure. My measure is that awards are a delightful thing. It is an applause given to you by your peers. But the real award is in the streets. When a man chases me in a barber shop and says, I want your autograph because you wrote Fevicol, that's an award.
And the business journalist in me wants to take it one step forward and say, do you also use any other financial parameter to satisfy your client?
I think when people in the streets talk like this, the client goes laughing to the bank. When they love your advertising, then they are the real people, they are the buyers. And largely, there might be a lot of work which wins awards, may not be successful in the marketplace. But when a man on the street applauds your work, then you're quite certain that the client is doing well. And by and large, they have done well, and because of them, we have done well.
You know, this whole realization that Indian advertising is arrived on the world stage, I'm sure this question has been posed to you many times, and you've watched that arrival also take place. It doesn't happen overnight.
It doesn't.
But, you know, now Cannes is very much as much an Indian story as it is for the rest of the world. What does Cannes and the Indian recognition there mean to you?
It means a lot to me because I have been going to Cannes from 1994. And we were nobodies. We used to go there and come back after clapping for others. And slowly our work got understood by them. And we also learned from Cannes to do high quality work. We learned to finish our ideas in a proper fashion. And then when we started getting recognition, when we now go to Cannes, and about 100 Indians are there in Cannes during the festival, and people are saying, hey, what's the new Indian work?
Yeah. It must be delightful to really hear that.
It is great. I still remember when we got the first finalist at Cannes, my colleague Sonal Dabral and I, we went and got a photograph taken. And there were about 700 finalists out there. We had one. And then now India wins lions. So, and the question nowadays is how many?
Any line that was particularly special because it was a campaign that you loved?
Yeah, I did a campaign for Cancer Patients AIDS Association for anti-smoking. It was a takeoff on a famous tobacco campaign. It had a cowboy holding his head because his horse had died, and it just said, "Second-hand smoke kills." That got a double gold at Cannes and won everything around the world. That and when Fevicol, the bus ad, won a silver at Cannes. Because you can say that the anti-smoking one can have a limited audience, but the bus is as popular in the desert of Jaisalmer as it is on the Riviera in Cannes.
When you're in the advertising profession, I almost as an outsider feel that you're playing semi-psychologist role. You're trying to understand the mind of the consumer. You're also trying to understand the needs of the client, and you have to find an effective method of communication. It's a process that's difficult to institutionalize. We call it the creative process. Some say you've actually managed to keep that creative process alive at Ogilvy very successfully. What does it take to keep it alive?
There is no brain surgery in that.
What, Mickey Mouse and Mahatma Gandhi combination? That's what you said once.
Rocket science is not there. If you respect your family, if you respect your friends, if you respect your surround, then understanding the consumer is no great thing. I mean, trying to analyze a person's mind in 10 different ways as to why does Manu want to use a certain soap. Well, she's got 50,000 other things to do, so get to the basics. And this is what I've tried to share with my people. And fortunately, I've been very lucky in getting and attracting a lot of good people who attracted more good people. So we try and keep our people at the level of saying, do not take yourself too seriously, take your work seriously. And then making the connect is not that difficult. It's only when we complicate our minds, that's when we are in trouble.
Talking about people, there are two parts to this. Did anybody in the industry play the role of mentor, role model, or both combined to you?
I can't single out anybody because I'm a believer that you can learn from your cook, and you can learn from your mother, and you can learn from your boss. So I picked up things from various people, but one particular gentleman who was the great motivator for me was my boss, late Suresh Malik, with whom I did Mere Sur Mera Tumhara. He was the man who conceived it, and he was the one who gave me the opportunity of writing the song. So, up there.
And how do you spot and nurture the next generation of talent?
By keeping out of the way. I'm a believer that you can motivate by demonstration, you can provide the backing, you can give the opportunity, but do not try and influence your own way of thinking on people. Because if I knew the right way, I would get it right every time. How can I tell him what's the right way?
But is it challenging to know just how much to let them do their own thing? Is it challenging? Because Piyush, it must
love it.
be.
I'll share a fact with you which will surprise you. Some of the most famous work in this country has been on Hutch. And my policy is, Piyush Pandey, don't touch Hutch, otherwise you'll spoil it. There is a team of people who live, breathe Hutch all the time, and they have a gentle touch, which I think I would damage if I interfere.